journalists are not saying citizen journalism as a positive side. They are making journalism better. So those that are in the mainstream journalism are now becoming better because they have to dig deeper to tell a story differently. For a breaking story of yesterday is no longer a breaking story because someone would have posted it elsewhere. And I would also agree that I think working in the newsroom, the most painful thing is when you think you have an exclusive, someone gives you a tip, they share you information, and the next minute they don't see you posting anywhere. Within 5 minutes, they have shared it themselves. The police are doing it, politicians are doing it, and after all, they are managing their own pages on social media. But we can only be journalists that are counted if we differently. Thank you so much, Mr. Ephraim Ndali, for those insights, and also just to welcome those that may have just joined. This is the third day of the conference, Future of Journalism Education in Southern Africa, the 2022 edition. And today the host is Misa Malawi. We are live from the capital, Lilongwe, in Malawi. And we have our partners, GW Academy and Center for Innovation and Technology, as well as the National Media Trust in Namibia. You can participate in this discussion. I know that there is quite a huge following on the live stream, and our hashtag is journalism education or journalism excellence, and hashtag media viability. You can join, post your question or provide a comment on the same. And I should be inviting the next presenter, who is also another veteran journalist with 30 years of experience, 30 years of newsroom experience, lived experience. Probably he has seen the what I would call the revolution of the Malawi media, because within the 30 years, that's also the same time when Malawi became a democratic and a democratic state. And our next presenter will be Pirirani Kachinziri, who is the editor-in-chief at Times Group, the oldest media outlet in Malawi. Pirirani has 30 years experience, as I mentioned, in mainstream media, with proven record for both electronic and print media platforms. He has been head of print media, bureau and programs manager, head of news and current affairs, assistant editor, and sports editor. Pirirani is sports columnist and hosts sports programs on #1 television station, Times Television, here in Malawi. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for Pirirani Kachinziri as he comes in front. You are welcome, sir, and you will be speaking to the same topic, citizens as journalists in the digital age, opportunities and challenges. Thank you so much. You're welcome, sir.
Morning, colleagues. Morning, colleagues. Right, thanks. I'll not take much of your time. As the convener said, we are allocated only 10 minutes to do our presentation. Unfortunately, I think the machine there has gone haywire, so I'll not be able to put my things on the screen. But still, I think from what I've gathered, it will be enlightening to you. I'm here to present, my presentation will be focusing on the best practices in the community journalism initiative that the Times Group, I should say the Times Group, has implemented for years. I think we started a long time back, this effort of dealing with citizens journalism. Just to give a brief background of the Times Group. The Times Group was founded in 1895. They are the publishers of the Daily Times, Malawi News, and Sunday Times. We also own Zuga Publishing Company. It also owns Times Radio and Times Television, and present a digital media, Facebook, Twitter, and website. In our effort to deal with the community journalism, there are guiding documents which we follow. One, there is a robust editorial policy, which we make sure that it should be adhered to before we publish anything from the citizen journalists. And there's a particular house style we developed as Times, which needs to be followed. There's also Media Council of Malawi Code of Ethics. This Media Council of Malawi Code of Ethics, it stipulates several professional practice standards, such as self-representation. A journalist has the responsibility to provide the public with accurate information. So this does not only stop to the mainstream media, no, but also to the citizen journalists. It also states that journalists shall observe the editorial policy on the media of the media house, which he or she reports to. So everybody who wants to correspond for the to have his story or story published in any of our platforms has to follow this thing. And also use of, they are encouraged to avoid use of traumatizing pictures, as my colleague Ephraim stated, that this is one of the ethical dilemmas we are facing. So traumatizing pictures, obscene languages, or obscene pictures, those things are not allowed in our publication. And there's also need for them to be accurate with the information. Not just because they are not trained and are like they should be giving us information which can put us in trouble. And they need to be objective and also avoid plagiarism. All the stories must be balanced. This is the initiative which we are using based on the guidance from the Media Council of Malawi Code of Ethics. There is also an issue of constitution. This is also another guiding document of the Republic of Malawi. It guarantees freedom of expression. Every person shall have the right to freedom of expression, freedom of the press. The press shall have the right to report, publish freely within or outside Malawi. So all these are the guiding documents we follow at the Times Group as we are dealing with these citizen journalists. We have got several media platforms at the Times Group where these community journalists can express themselves. We have got the Daily Times, which was established in 1895 as Nyasan Times, strictly for breaking news. We have Malawi News. It was established in 1959. Malawi News is purely investigative stories. The Sunday Times, established in 2004. This one is human interest. And we have the Times Television, established in 2013. We have Times Radio, established in 2014. And the Times 360 Malawi, which is a website, Facebook page, and Twitter. So all these platforms belong to the Times Group. So you can see that the citizen journalists have got to diverse platforms to express themselves. The Times Group and community journalists. Okay. There are a number of platforms within these channels I've given you. In the newspapers, Malawi News, we've got page 8 in Malawi News. Our community calls for stories about what is happening in the areas. Every weekend, this comes out, and the stories, we encourage that they need to be accompanied by pictures, audios, or videos. We have got stories on the Facebook, radio, we've got a Chichewa program, talking about Atlantana. By meaning Atlantana, we mean those journalists who are in different areas. These people, when they've got interesting stories, we have verified them, we go and air them on radio. And there is also television. We also publish some stories we get from these community journalists. Okay. Now the Times Group and digital media. we've got newspapers. E-Times carries stories from citizen journalists. Times Television, we live stream on Facebook, YouTube. I will tell you something about Times Television. One of the achievements during the election, we were receiving pictures across the country and the visuals. For instance, the one which one of the MPs was arrested in Rompi was trying to tamper, or allegedly trying to tamper with the votes. We got that story from the citizen journalists, including the picture. So this citizen journalists, we are awake almost maybe for the 72 hours. We opened our lines, broadcasting, streaming live the elections in 2019 and 2020, the presidential and parliamentary election and the presidential run in 2020. We have Times 360, there's Facebook, Twitter, and website, and there's also Times 1895, which is a shortcut. Okay, sorry. What we do at times when we are working with these citizen journalists, we tell the citizen journalists to alert us on a story. For instance, yesterday, there's a murder which has happened along the Mchinji Road. The story was purely from a citizen journalist. Then we had to dig deeper, getting more information from this, from the citizen journalists before we bounce off with the relevant authority to make sure that all the information we're getting is credible. We also mentor them on a good angle. When they give a tip, we say, can you pursue this angle so that the story should be exciting? Compiling breaking news stories for radio, Facebook, Times 1895 text line. There are editors who were designated to be dealing with these guys on these platforms. So when story comes, that story is for a particular editor so that he can process it, or she can process it and publish it on the particular platform. Sometimes when the story is very exciting, we tell them to develop the story faith for the newspaper, to change the angles and the like, as Ephraim said, because if you keep on publishing what everybody wants, you lose the relevance on the market. Then as editors, we take the initiative of developing the story faith by speaking to the concerned sources, balance up the story to make sure that everything is accurate. Opportunity for community journalists. We conduct trainings for these guys. Time to time. For instance, 2023 budget, we are already focusing on this so that we should train most of them so that they should be aware of our needs and to be acquainted with the journalism professional practice standards. They also receive mentorship from citizen journalists, and some have even launched their career as a mainstream journalist using the very same platforms. Others are even leaving now because they have decided to develop themselves further from a mere community journalist. Now they are fully accomplished journalists. Basically, that is what the initiatives we are doing as a Times Group, being the oldest media empire, private media empire on the land, to work with our friends as community journalists.
Oldest media empire in Malawi, and you said the 1895, the Daily Times was born. That's quite that's quite a long time, and you would have expected Times to be a little bit more conservative, not to embrace technology and not to embrace the citizen journalists. But as we have heard from Pilani, he's saying there is an opportunity, and what they are doing basically is also to mainstream the citizen journalism into the actual journalism. I was actually getting worried in the sense that when I think the first speaker was talking about the first part. I think he mentioned about citizen journalism also posing a challenge to mainstream journalism. But later on, he said, at the end of the day, the journalists themselves have. And the second presenter is also now saying, even as we accept citizen journalists, but they have to live up to a certain standard, meaning we are not going to do a catch-up to follow what citizen journalists are doing, but they'll have to catch up to do what the mainstream is doing. Issues of ethics, they would have to be balanced, and there are also deliberate efforts to equip them with skills so that there is no sensationalism. And I have liked indeed, Mr. Kachinziri, what you've mentioned, that there are deliberate efforts to train them, because if you receive a copy, you change it, they don't know exactly why you have changed it, they may not improve next time. But those deliberate efforts are quite welcome, because citizen journalists are not a temporary irritation. They'll be there forever. Thank you so much, and let's give a big hand to Mr. Kachinziri. Thank you so much. I will proceed with our program, and also just to mention that today we are hosting this event in Lilongwe, courtesy of MISA, Malawi, and our partners are Center for Innovation and Technology, as well as Namibia Media Trust, NMT, and DW Academy. For those that are following online, you are welcome to provide your comments because we have a discussion shortly after the next presenter, where we can interact with our speakers this morning. And ladies and gentlemen, let me invite our next speaker, who is actually coming from the Media Council of Malawi. The last two speakers have talked about issues of ethics, and I thought the next speaker would talk about this, and this is Mr. Moses Kaufa, who is the current Executive Director for Media Council of Malawi. He has been with the Council since December 2019, and Moses has 20 years experience in the media and communication sector as a journalist, consultant, project manager, and media production specialist. His area of specialty is mass communication and strategic management. And while I welcome Mr. Kaufa on stage, I think you talk about issues of citizen journalism, mainstream journalism, as well as issues of ethics. They have talked about sharing pictures on online. The need to break the news and values or certain principles have suffered along the way. How do you look at that as Media Council of Malawi? Let me welcome Mr. Moses Kaufa, please. A big hand for Mr. Moses as he comes in front. Quite an enriching discussion indeed here from Lilongwe at Riverside. Our next presenter is Moses Kaufa. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session. Those that are following us online and offline, feel free to interact after this presentation. We need to discuss quite a lot about issues of ethics amongst the media. And when you talk of the media, we are not talking only about those that are in the mainstream media. There's been much talk about the citizen journalists, and who a citizen journalist is could be a very wide definition. So I will be talking very much about self-regulation in the digital space. But while talking about that, I would also be looking at what's the responsibility of a journalist. And by journalists, we're talking of those in the mainstream media and even those citizen journalists that we are talking about. And I'll also talk about how we regulate the media in Malawi. And further to that, I will now talk about the issues that we have as the media in Malawi and even across the borders, in as far as the digital space is concerned. And I will also discuss with you a few suggestions on how we can move forward to make sure that we able to deal with the issues and challenges that we face as the media. The whole reason why we're talking about the media today is because everyone has known and appreciates the need to always reveal information and to talk about, to always share information that we come across. And I have a quotation that usually I like most. This is from John F. Kennedy, the former US president. He said this in January 1961. In a free and open society, there can be no place for secrecy, secret societies, secret oaths, or secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the concealment of the truth or pertinent facts and relevant information far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Which means, much as we have challenges in the media, we don't have to stop working as the media. We have to find ways of dealing with the challenges, with the issues that we are coming across as the media. I wanted us to first of all talk about the responsibilities of journalists. There's been a number of issues that have been discussed here since the past 2 days, and I picked a few challenges, especially to do with issues of fake news, disinformation, misinformation, and so on. And one of the responsibilities that I wanted to share with you is the fact that a journalist should always seek the truth, always be keen to verify details. I remember Pirirani just shared one incident that happened yesterday. There was a shooting along the Lilongwe Nchinji Road. And when I first got the information, it was that someone has been shot by his girlfriend. And then later in the afternoon, someone shared information that it is a lawyer that has been shot. Then later in the evening, I got some more further information. And actually it was coming from one of the TV stations in Malawi, which said an identified man has been shot. Yeah. And today, that's when we learned that this man is a Zimbabwean, has been shot by his fellow Zimbabweans, and the girlfriend was kind of running away and has been held at the police in Nchinji. So this is the information that we've always been getting. And the fact that someone has been sharing this information in bits and bits with wrong information somehow, it means that there has been lack of that kind of verification of details. So we need to be accurate and always check our facts. The second responsibility is to be fair and avoid exaggeration. There's been talk of being empathetic. Every time we are sharing information, we need to ask ourselves, what if this information was about me? How would I feel? How would my family feel? So we have to be empathetic. We have to always avoid exaggeration and always be fair in the way we present the information. The other thing, the other responsibility is for us to be independent and accountable. Every time we have to know that we are the first person to be asked questions if we present information wrongly. So we have to always be independent and accountable and always make our primary allegiance to the public that we are serving. Every time we have to ensure that we are delivering the right information that will help people make right decisions. Much as we know that as a media, we are there to hold the power to account. Those that are in public offices, those that are using our public resources. So our investigations should always aim at revealing the truth. And let us avoid cooking information to fit someone's perception or someone's objective, but always to present the truth and to present that truth comprehensively. When we talk of ethics, we are always talking about some codes that would help us avoid breaking the law. And that is why one other responsibility of the media, of a journalist, is to report while at the same time abiding by the requirements of the law. We have been overtaken by issues of breaking news these days. And this is because a journalist has also got a responsibility to always be timely when they are publishing information. So I would want to also emphasize on the fact that a journalist should always make sure that we appreciate that we make mistakes. And because we appreciate that we make mistakes, we should always be willing to make corrections. We are not champions. We are not the best. We are not always right. There are times that we can make mistakes. So those are some of the responsibilities that we have as journalists. And I would want also to talk about how the media is regulated in Malawi. And when we talk of regulation, most of the times, we need to understand it as a balance of rights and responsibilities. Every time we are publishing information, we need to know that we have a responsibility to protect the rights of the people that we serve. So much as we have responsibility, we have rights as the media, we should also know our responsibility. And that is where comes the word or the fact of regulation, making sure that you are conducting yourself within the tenets of professionalism of the media, be it in Malawi, across the borders, in any other country, and anywhere that you are working as a journalist. In Malawi, we have two levels of regulation. We have the state regulation and we have the media self-regulation. And in media, in the state regulation, this is under the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority, which falls under the Ministry of Information and Digitalization. And this was actually an initiative that came a long time ago. I think Ephraim and Pidirani would agree with me that the time that we had one radio station, we did not have a state regulator. The Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority actually came in after the democracy and after they had noted that there has been a mushrooming of a number of media houses in the country. So management or regulation of Malawi Broadcasting Corporation then was internal within the government tenet. But then the introduction or the coming in of democracy, which brought a lot of media houses in the country, effected the establishment of the Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority in 1996, 1998. And this is what also threatened the industry, that probably we might now begin to be manipulated as well by the government institutions. So that is where media houses said, no, let us create our own model of regulation. This is where the introduction of media self-regulation in the country came in. That was in 1998. And that was where the Media Council of Malawi was established. Now we have a model of self-regulation in Malawi. And this model has got 4 levels. The first one is looking at the individual journalist. Like I've indicated earlier on, I spoke about the responsibilities of a journalist. So every individual journalist should make sure that on their own, they are operating professionally. And that is why the council developed the Media Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct to guide the professionalism of a journalist, of an individual journalist in the country. And this is open to be used by citizen journalists as well as the mainstream media journalists. And then we have the organizational level, because whatever happens at an individual level reflects on the image of an institution. We have heard from Times Group, we have heard from Nation. There are over 80 media outlets in the country. And each media house has got an image to protect. And this image is actually it's composed of the conduct of individual journalists working for that particular institution. The citizen journalists that we're talking about are representing a society, and this society also has got an image to protect. So that is why we want to make sure that while an individual journalist has got a responsibility to protect themselves, the institutions that they are working for also should take responsibility to protect their professionalism. And all these media institutions, all these individual journalists are now being protected by a professional body, which is the Media Council of Malawi. However, we also have the extra media level, which is now looking at the role of the citizens, the role of the public in making sure that journalists or the media is conducting itself professionally according to the standards that have been set without actually breaking the law. And this entails making sure that citizens understand the role of the media and hold media practitioners to account. However, citizens also, who are always sharing information through social media and other platforms, should make sure that they are able to regulate themselves when using those kinds of platforms. That is why we've taken a different step to make sure that we are able to educate the public to understand the media code of ethics and all the relevant standards that they need to abide by to make sure that they conduct themselves professionally. Now there are a few issues that that we note to do with the media in general, specifically with the issues that are affecting us in as far as the digital space is concerned. While we pride in using technology on almost everything, we need to remember that with that great freedom comes a great responsibility. And that is what I also mentioned earlier on. Whenever you are conducting yourself, whenever you're using the gadgets that you're using, whenever you're using the platforms that you're using, make sure that you also have a responsibility. You also have a society to protect by giving them the right information. Our tech dependence has made modern technologies capitalize on human brain. And this time, we think that we own technology, but technology now owns us. Technology knows us better than we know ourselves. And actually, I've noted a number of times here, people posting stuff on Facebook and telling Facebook, keep this for me. And you wonder, do you know who Facebook is? Have you ever held Facebook to account? Have you ever summoned Facebook to ask them questions on how they are going to use the information that you're giving them, and so on and so forth? So I think we need to know that these days we might think that we know technology or we know social media, but mind you, social media and technology know us better than we know ourselves. We have become too addicted to technology such that instead of liberating us, techs have imprisoned us. We no longer own technologies, like I've said. And every time you touch, there was this other day, there was a shutdown of WhatsApp. I'm telling you, everyone suffered. Everyone suffered because that is where we feel that we belong. Every time you want to touch your gadget, you want to touch your phone, you go straight to WhatsApp, you go straight to Facebook, you go straight to Twitter, you go straight to TikTok and all those kinds of platforms. So these are now controlling us. We need to regain the technology, to regain the power of actually managing these particular platforms. Verifying information has been overtaken by news breaking, propaganda, misinformation, and disinformation. Sometimes we do it deliberately. We find the right information, but we twist it, we tweak it just to fit our objective. And in the end, we find ourselves giving people wrong information. And the fact that we cannot verify information because we want to be the first to break the news has also affected our professionalism. Apparently, there are doctored images and videos that are flooding the digital space. And this also affects our work. So most of the times we need to find ways of dealing with these kinds of issues. There have been instances where we have been overtaken by typo predictions when we are typing stuff on our social media platforms. We find that we have typed the wrong word other than what we intended actually to project, and that also has affected the media. I've noted a number of comments on various social media platforms for actually professional media houses that have been projecting or providing wrong information just because because of those kinds of type of predictions. So what are the solutions that I would want to suggest? The first is that the existing principles, the code of ethics and professional conduct, should be adapted to the current technological realities, and journalists need to have every time refresher orientations on the same. Sometimes we think that trainings are meant for only those that are coming into the industry as students and new entrants to the industry, but there are those that have lived in the mainstream media for quite a long time that are lacking some of the skills that we need. Every user should use their gadgets for the common good of everyone in the society, so that when we are using our gadgets, when we are using the platforms that we use, we should aim at helping and promoting, developing our societies. Ensure that the information you share is credible and from a very credible source. Apparently, there are a number of credible websites and registered service providers who we can always approach to verify information. Meanwhile, MCM is in the process of registering all media outlets and accrediting media practitioners so that we give people the choice to always see who is the right source of information, who is the right institution or the right person they can verify information with. And we would also want to make sure that everyone stops sharing whatever seems to be trendy or dramatic. Most of the times, we spend time on platforms that we cannot even trust. And this actually enables us or gives us the privilege to always share wrong information most of the times. The digital frontier will happily make you slaves if you let it, and we may have ourselves to blame. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Executive Director for Media Council of Malawi, for the presentation. The emphasis is journalists should always seek the truth. Journalists must always appreciate that they can also make mistakes and they must own those mistakes. Journalists should remember that great freedom comes with great responsibility. I think so. Mr. Kaufa for the presentation. Let's give him a big hand once again. And allow me to invite Mr. Kaufa, Mr. Mtali, and Mr. Kachinzi to come in front. There are 3 seats there so that they can interact with the audience. There should be some questions, clarification from the audience or comments. So I ask you to come in front. And I've picked a few things from Mr. Kaufa's presentation, where social media seem to have become everything. They say alone but not lonely. So you could be alone, but I think you're still in a group because of the social media. And we could be together, but you are also alone. Thank you so much. So we have our panelists in front of us, and what I'll do, I'll pose the first question, but I'll also ask members of the audience, in case you have a question, you can raise that question, and those that are participating online can also ask a question. What I wanted to find out, I think just to set the ball rolling, and this would be a question across. It is just one question. Now, looking at social media influencers, citizen journalism, if you, Mr. Mdali talked about, let me begin with you, Mr. Mdali, you talked about journalism today must be different from journalism yesterday. So we need to do more analysis than the usual that we could have done some years ago. The level of journalism and professionalism, how do you rate it? Maybe just 30 seconds from Mr. Mdali, your own rating of journalism in the era of new media.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's been a strong level of professionalism, and I think there's more and more attempt at in-depth reporting that goes beyond, the secretarial kind of reporting that was prevalent for a long time. So that is indeed happening. So if you want me to rate it, I think out of 10, I would say we're 6 to 7, because I want to still leave room for improvement between then and 10.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mdala and Mr. Kachinzira. How do you respond to that? Are we just regurgitating what is what is on social media, or we are doing better as mainstream journalists, if you allow me to use that word?
To be honest, I'm not impressed with the level of journalism. It's a question of regurgitating what is being prophesized in the social media. Our stories are lacking the depth. You see, we are just simply transmitting what those social media influencers or those community journalists have identified somewhere else. But much as there's that progress on how the stories are handled, but I don't think that as journalists we are doing a lot to give more context to the stories, so that we should be far miles ahead of the social media influencers or the community journalists.
And your rating will be out of 10?
I would give ourselves a 4.
A 4, so
yes.
We need to work on the 6. And Mr. Kaufa, as you look at this question, I also want you to reflect on the issue of ethics. How are we doing, and your own rating of the media in the digital media era?
Thank you very much. I'm looking at information that we get from social media as tips for our stories. Just like Pirana said, I think there isn't much to do with issues of verification and such, that we have been kind of conduits to false information, to fake news, and looking at, I'll base my rating basically at looking at the number of media institutions that are at least professional against the total number of media houses that we have in the country. So I would give it 4.
A 4. Thank you so much. This was just to set the ball rolling. We have the audience here in person and people who are following online. I must mention that the audience in person here is quite diverse. We have our panelists, people with experience in journalism, have been in the industry for quite some time. We also have journalists here, and of course, members of the academia. I've seen Dr. Francis Chikunkuzeni. You're welcome, from the Malawi University of Business and Applied Science. And there's also Jime Kainja from Chancellor College, University of Malawi. Is also a communication and media lecturer. Here is the floor in case somebody wants to ask a question or to make a contribution on the subject matter that is on the floor. Anyone from the audience that we have here in person before we turn to the audience that we have online? So many issues that have been discussed here. There are also ratings here. Yeah, it's not my intention to put anyone on the spotlight, but let me start with you, Malik Nela, if there's a microphone there. Over to you, Malik. You can make your comment, a brief one for that matter, or a question to panelists.
Thank you very much.
And you may wish to fully identify yourself. Thank you.
Okay, whatever. Thank you very much, Suzo. Okay, thank you very much, Suzo. My name is Malik Nela, and Madam Chair, you quoted me well, rather unawares. But it's okay. It's an opinion that I share. Immediate observation, what Mr. Kachinziri just said about our poor performance. I think I will put it in a comment, then in a question later on about how we are performing in the media in terms of standards. I believe personally the standards have been what they are because of where we are coming and where we are going. The stagnation characterizes the whole scenario where we are. For example, if we look at the code of conduct that we are using right now, it's still at the 1998, 2008 draft form, can be corrected. Way back, a lot of things have happened from the professional point of view. That's self-regulation from a professional media point of view. Now, we are now talking about standardizing the digital space when our own house is not up to date, is not as regulated as possible the laws of the law society or the medical council. Just look at the code of conduct that we have. Of course, sometimes some would argue that it reflects what other code of conduct do reflect, but my personal view is that it leaves a lot to be desired. Now, in terms of the documented standard, when do we hope to see a document that's a living document, a document that is updated regularly, so that it reflects the changing time? That's my question. Then secondly, I think the standard of journalism that we have is reflected by the kind of training that we also have. In terms of curriculum development, how much curriculum development is being put into consideration in terms of looking at the evolving nature of journalism? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nela, for the comment as well as the question. Media Council of Malawi have been put on the spotlight. We seem to be using what I would call archaic, not archaic, but I think a document that was produced a long time ago when times have changed. How do you respond to that before we get to the issue of training?
Thank you very much, Malik. It's just a point of correction. We're using now a code of ethics and professional conduct that was revised in 2020. Yeah, and like you might remember, my first recommendation was to make sure that we also keep revising this to make it, as you have made it rightly, you have put it rightly, that it should be a living document. So we would still be revising it. We'll be still revising it to make sure that it reflects on the current trajectory of the media and the digital space. Exactly.
That the quality of journalism today is also a reflection of the kind of training. 30 seconds, if you, from the point of a regulator.
Yeah, actually, I was going to that one.
Yeah, because the same question will go to Pilan and the Ephraim. I know in the newsroom they have interns or they have graduates from, journalism graduates. How do they look at the training? Is it responding to the needs? So after 30 seconds, you pass on the mic to
I do agree. I agree with Malik that there is need for a revision and consistent checking on the curricula with media training institutions. And apparently we've taken that step, and we are working with the media training institutions to check the content of their curricula, and also to make sure that we work together in ensuring that standards are met together with the National Council for Higher Education in Malawi. They actually approached us to say that we need to work together to make sure that the media is actually up to date with their content in training institutions. However, like I said, we feel that it's not only those in training institutions that need these trainings, or even those that have been in the mainstream media for quite some time. The professional journalists, those that have got that vast experience, have got some gaps that they need to also be addressed.
I would say not much. Journalism is a craft, and it needs a lot of practicals than mere academics. So those of us maybe who have benefited from Mindolo Ecumenical Center, which is in Kitwe, then you would find that every fortnight, the class of journalism was expected to produce a newspaper about 16 pages. So you would find that most of the veteran journalists were acquiring experience from what they learned from Kitwe at that particular time. They were hands-on than mere academic. So I think the training institutions, I think it's high time now they digressed from what they're doing and venture into more practical work when it comes to journalism.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mtale. How do you reflect on this?
Okay, I'll say two things. One, by experience, I've observed that in the case of us, it takes us a minimum of 3. It will take, let's say, a MUBAS trained journalist fresh from college, a minimum of 3 years in the newsroom for that person to be seen to be there and deliver as a fully fledged journalist. So that's the learning curve that we're dealing with. So you can make your own interpretations in that regard. Having said that, I think media houses have a responsibility to have well-structured training programs. We need to have annual training plans because we cannot expect a fresh graduate to be top-notch, immediately. So training programs at media level, media house level, extremely important. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that's the industry responding.
But you expect an undergraduate to get the basics right as is going into the mainstream. So these basics are supposed to be taught at the college.
Thank you so much. I also put on the spot Mr. Chairperson Teresa Ndanga because I know you have a training center, and that is also very crucial in training journalists. I know I've been heavily involved with community journalists themselves. I'll pass the mic to Mr. Chair to also talk about the training issue. Apart from the classroom itself, the trainings that MISA is conducting, are they making a difference?
I think we are making a difference through the Mr. Malawi Training Center because as Pirani has indicated there, that we need to be hands-on. And I think the basis of our training center is basically hands-on. So we will train journalists. Of course, our focus is really journalists who are already in the industry. So I think I would say we are helping the media houses currently train their journalists. So in future, our plan is to really focus on students who would want now to join the media industry. But as it is now, I think we are the only training center in Malawi, which is hands-on journalism and media related. Thank you.
The future of journalism education in Southern Africa, that's the discussion I also put on the spotlight. Jimmy Kainja, you may not have prepared yourself, and I'll get to Dr. Chukunkuzen because you're right. In these training institutions, you've heard the comments, maybe 30 seconds. What do you have to say on this, Jimmy from University of Malawi?
Feeling preempting my presentation this afternoon. But I'm on the spot. I think there are several issues that we have to consider. For me, I think the primary issue is how we get students into universities, into colleges to study journalism. Journalism shouldn't just be like any other course that people are selected to go and do. You should get people that are interested in journalism. They know what journalism is. Today, you have graduates that are scared actually to go in the newsroom. They don't want to be challenged by deadlines and whatnot. But they've done 4 years of journalism. There is a problem. So I think I'll discuss more in my presentation.
Thank you so much. I don't want to preempt your presentation. We'll get to Dr. Chukunkuzen. Some 30 seconds, the training, is it responding to the needs? And so Jimmy is saying, journalism must not be at the end of your selection list because you have failed science and therefore let me be a journalist. How would you respond to that?
I just wanted us to clarify the two terms, education and training. As somebody who comes from an educational background, the two are different. Training is hands-on, how to do things. That's a technician job. A university education is education, which means you explain why you become critical and analytical. Both of them are important, but not all of them will actually happen at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Selena, you seem to be itching to say something. Yeah. Or you want to say something sir, before we get to Selena? So Selena, I am one of the Miss trainers, and an editor at Nation Publications Limited. How do you look at the issue of training? Is it responding to the needs, the current needs?
Thank you so much. I would say a resounding no, because I, for instance, work on the online desk, and there is no institution in here, including my former lecturer, Dr. Chikunkuzeni, that I was trained in online journalism. There was nothing like that. So up to now, you still find that these institutions are not adapting to what the new trends are in education. We're still talking about HTML, that is web designing in journalism, or computer-aided research and reporting, something so archaic that is not in tandem with what is on the ground right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selina. Also, just to mention that we're here in the capital, Lilongwe, in Malawi, where Mr. Malawi is hosting the third day of the training of the conference, Future of Journalism Education in Southern Africa. We've heard the difference between education and training. We'll get more into the details of this discussion later after the break, but just also to mention that we are expecting to have participants online who can also share their comments. We haven't really seen so much comments, but I hope people are following from Namibia, Zimbabwe, and other parts of Southern Africa, as well as Germany. Moses, do we have anyone who would want to come on online? So there's a question on the hand. Would you want me to read the question from there, or what do we do? Or are they coming on screen? Okay. So Anderson from London should be coming on the screen. Well, before we get to Anderson from London, I think there is someone here. My name is Solas Asafo, a lecturer of journalism and media studies from the Ghana Institute of Journalism. My question has to do with a point the speaker made about journalists having a responsibility to care about their personal safety. Do the media and communication training institutions in your countries have courses that teach student journalists practical personal safety measures? Interesting perspective from the professor clarifying the difference between education and training. We get back to you, Prof. You are on the spotlight again on the issue of safety. Is safety part of the package that you train journalists? We are on you. There is a question on safety when you're training the journalists or when you're providing education to the journalists. Thank you so much. So that's the response that is coming from Dr. Chikunkuzeni. Do we have some more comments, Moses? Comments that we can attend to from online? Or Teresa Ndanga, Mr. Chairperson, wants to say something, the microphone. And then after Teresa, we get to Jimmy Kainja. The issues about safety as part of the education package.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add that through Mr. Malawi, because this is something that we are really concerned with in terms of the environment that journalists are practicing in, we have developed a manual on safety where journalists, we notice, of course, during demonstrations, countrywide demonstrations, during elections, that journalists have really been at risk, sometimes being attacked physically. So we have a manual that journalists can use on their safety, and that is also being given to them through the training centers. So I just wanted to add that in case the institutions are not training them in safety, at least when they come to the industry, we are there and they can utilize them.
Thanks so much, Teresa. We'll get to Jimmy quickly before we get to the panelists.
I think Teresa has really covered most of that. I wanted to agree with my senior there, Dr. Chimku, saying that there are certain things that you can put in curriculum. So some of these things, for example, goes back to news organizations, because issues of safety basically changes all the time depending with circumstances. And news organizations should be able to prepare their journalists before they go out. But putting in curriculum, I mean, curriculum takes about maybe 7 years to review. You know, the environment changes a lot. Before I lose the mic, a question to Mr. Kaufa there, and maybe everyone here. I think one of the issues really that we're grappling with as an industry is that we're living in a country with low trust. Malawi is a low trust society. We don't really trust a lot of and that's why you have, for example, the question of media influencers popping up, having more followers than news institutions and whatnot. So I want to put this to this house that why don't we start thinking about this thing that the media itself should also be accountable in Malawi. We should seriously be thinking the question of having media ombudsman, for example. People should be able to go somewhere and complain if they've got problems with the media. That will address the question of trust. I think I should put that maybe to Moses because as
yes, thank you so much. As we are winding up, I think Jimmy has made my job very simple. So that's the question that we should be dealing with. As you remember, there was a quote, I think, from first day, if not second day, that politicians are more trusted than journalists. I think that should worry us. Now, issues of trust and credibility. Would you pass on the mic to would you want to start? Or I think you should come last. Let Mr. Mtari start, then Mr. Kachinziri. Issues of trust and media ombudsman.
Yeah, well, I think I can start by first of all to say that I think that structure is there within the system of Media Council of Malawi. I think they have a well-structured ombudsman system. That's the first one, and I think we have had the first-hand working with the complaints committee or commission. It's a very clear system. Actually, as recent as maybe last month, MCM just settled an issue for us at Nation Publications through this complaints committee, and it ended amicably in a manner that shows that it is quite an effective system. I think Moses is going to expound on that one there. But maybe before I lose the mic, to use Jimmy's language, is to say that there is always, I understand the difference between training and education. And I think there have always been this statement from Mobas and the others, especially from Mobas, to say that, look, our job is really to train these guys to be critical thinkers, analytical thinkers. I get that. But we can't see anything critical about the thinking of these colleagues when they come into the newsroom. So that has to be looked at in a much more in-depth way. Critical thinkers are not going to be trotting social media every day to pick up a news idea. Critical thinkers don't have to survive on an event, on a press release, or something that is handed over to them. Those are not critical thinkers. And I can tell you 99% of what we get, this is what they do. Nothing critical, I have to say.
Thank you so much.
Bluntly so, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kachinziri. Issues of trust.
Yeah, that's why my rating, I gave it a 4.
Yes,
but first, what? Yeah, I think issues of trust. I think maybe we can say we are a nation that likes gossiping. But at the end of the day, you find that when all is said and done in the social media, still these people will still go to the mainstream media to verify if indeed the issues are true or not. So if the issue has not been tackled on the mainstream media online, I think that still remains the gossip. So we are still doing great on that one. Only that maybe some people want us to be peddling lies because we like maybe listening to gossips. But if they want real news, I think they need to go to the online media platforms. That's where they can verify.
Thank you so much.
The stories.
Media Council, Ombudsman, and for this question from Jimmy.
Thank you very much. We initiated the concept of ombudspersons already, and every media house across the country now has got an ombudsperson. And these ombudspersons are working directly with the Ethics, Complaints, and Disciplinary Committee of the Media Council. So at the Media Council, within the setup of this committee, we have legal practitioners of 2 lawyers who work on making determinations on various complaints that we receive. I know that we still have a long way to go because we have done a few orientations of media ombudspersons, and we still need to do more. Because when we were introducing this concept, there are a number of institutions that brought their station managers. Probably they wanted to understand the concept. And now they went back and appointed the ombudsperson who needs also to be trained. So this is the direction that we're taking. Otherwise, I believe that when all this takes full charge, we'll regain the trust and the professionalism that we've lost, apparently.
Thank you so much. Do you want to go some more? I know we'll still carry on the conversation.
No, I just wanted to comment on the issue of the safety of journalists. Dr. Chikunkozeni has made a very good differentiation of training and education, and I take issues of safety for journalists as cross-cutting, which should be discussed at every level. So let us continue. I appreciate the fact that MISA has developed a manual, and let's just take this as something that can be preached at every thematic area that we are trying to address as a media.
No, thank you so much. That's Mr. Moses Kaufa, the Executive Director for Media Council of Malawi. Quite an exciting discussion this morning, and we should be coming back. I should say this is the end of the morning session. We'll have a small break and we'll come back and continue the discussion. You should be looking forward to more insights because the next question after we come back from break will be, do we need these online meetings after the COVID pandemic? I know we have colleagues from Namibia, colleagues from Zimbabwe, and indeed here in Malawi. We should have been at one place, but because of COVID, I guess some of you attending the session online. We should have seen you in person, and we should have bonded personally. But here we are meeting virtually. Do we need these virtual meetings after the pandemic? Yeah, I know there are still more comments and questions online. We'll attend to those as we come back after the break. So our break will take 30 minutes. We should be coming back at what time, Moses? Yeah, so we'll be back at 11:15 Central African time, which I guess is also Malawian time. See you then. Enjoy your coffee. And let's give a big hand to our panelists this morning. people in person and also others who are joining online. Yeah, so far so good. So many insights. We have several take-home messages from the discussion that is taking place today. Our next speakers would be speaking on a very, very important topic where life is no longer the same after COVID-19. Apparently, when COVID-19 was here, we thought, it was all gloom and doom, but we found a way of surviving. And virtual meetings have really become part of life. Newsrooms have adopted the technology, so editorial meetings are held virtually instead of physically. And indeed, training sessions have also been held virtually, just like we are doing today, that we have participants who have joined virtually. Maybe the experts, as they come here, to answer the question of how long are we going to live virtually? Is there an end point after the pandemic? What next? Are we likely to have virtual weddings, virtual funerals? Because technology has permitted so. We'll be having our next presenters. Apparently, every journalist now is challenged at least to have some level of digital literacy, or else you cannot just function. In the newsroom, you need to know. You need to know these digital platforms, or else you are left behind. Google Meet, Zoom meeting. So all these have become part of life. So you can participate live, and we'll be so much happy to hear from you, those that are following the discussion online from Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Tanzania, and other parts of Africa and beyond. This is your discussion. This is our discussion, the future of journalism education in Southern Africa 2022 edition. Our next speakers, ladies and gentlemen, Selina Kainja and Teresa Ndanga. Selina Kainja is the online content editor for Nation Publications Limited, NPL, and Misa Malawi trainer in digital storytelling and photojournalism. She's also a political columnist and the Southern Africa regional coordinator for Pan-Africa Media Alliance for Climate Change. Recently, she mastered political science at the University of Malawi. Selina is the chairperson for the Malawi chapter of Women in News. A big hand for Selina. And Teresa Ndanga is MISA Malawi chairperson and trainer in investigative journalism, television reporting, and public communications modules. She is a communications specialist for the Global Water Partnership, Southern Africa. Teresa is an award-winning journalist with more than 10 years of experience as a reporter, news editor. Before joining Global Water Partnership, she worked as the public relations manager for the Malawi-based AHL Group. For some years, she was the director of news and current affairs at Zodiac Broadcasting Station. And of course, she was also a news anchor there. So allow me to invite Teresa Ndanga to come in front, and later on they'll be able to collaborate with Selina on their presentation. A big hand for Teresa as well. You have the...
Thank you so much, Susie. Good morning again, colleagues. It's still morning by my clock. Good morning again, colleagues, both physically and those that have joined us virtually. Selina and I will be discussing virtual sessions, media trainings, whether they're still relevant and whether we still think that beyond the pandemic, the sole reason that most of us got into the virtual trainings will still be relevant, and maybe if we need to maintain them. So we'll be answering that particular question. So I'll take you through the first part of this discussion, and then later on my colleague Selina will take over. So basically how we're going to go through this presentation is that we're going to look at a background, the general background in terms of why MISA Malawi, because Selina and I are both local MISA Malawi trainers, why we went into virtual trainings, how the experience has been. I'll also discuss the rise of online communication or collaboration, and then the pros or the advantages, if we look back at the physical trainings, how they compare to the online trainings. And then my colleague Selina will come in to discuss the challenges for virtual sessions. She'll also discuss the question on whether moving forward we still need to hold the virtual training sessions. Our colleagues who have joined us virtually, we have a bit of a technical challenge, and so maybe the presentation may not be moving at the moment, but we are looking into it. So my apologies. I hope you are able to catch up. Thank you. So in terms of the background, the COVID-19 pandemic significantly affected training institutions, including the MISA Malawi Training Center. So before the pandemic started, we were holding training sessions almost every quarter. But when COVID struck, we went to zero. We couldn't hold any training session. And that was a big problem for us because journalism had to continue to happen. We still needed to practice. Even though people were in their homes, journalists, you will remember that they still needed to continue to give out news. And that means that we also continuously needed to update the skills that these journalists need to be able to practice. And therefore, we thought that this is something that we still need to find a way to go around it and find a way to be able to continue to impart some skills for those that are continuously practicing. Just to give you a picture, UNESCO estimates that with the pandemic, about 1.4 billion students worldwide were affected. So they were out of school, they couldn't train, they couldn't, the teachers couldn't teach them, and that is throughout. So from primary to tertiary and all that you could think of. So that also includes ourselves, as I have already indicated. In terms of the impact in Malawi, the Malawi government had closed down all schools, as I think was the situation in most areas. So most learning institutions were closed down. And as MISA, we also needed to abide by what the government had instituted or the regulations that the government had put in place. So we couldn't have any physical trainings. There were limitations in terms of the numbers that you could have indoors, at the size of the room and so forth. And looking at our training center, we were not able to host any physical training going by those particular regulations. So that's why I said that from holding a training session per quarter, we went down to zero during the COVID-19, or at least at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we needed to still protect our journalists. Journalists were also affected. I saw there was a question online in terms of the impact on journalists. Journalists were also affected. There were a number of journalists who contracted COVID, got sick, and we lost some. I can't have the number immediately in my mind, but there were a number of journalists that we lost during the pandemic itself, which is something that we thought we needed to consider seriously as well in terms of holding physical trainings. So we took a decision that we can't continue to hold physical trainings, even though our numbers are generally small. So most times the numbers are about 12, between 10 and 12 people at a session. Now, looking at the rise in online communication or collaboration and training platforms, the pandemic necessitated the rise in use of these communication platforms. And lucky for us, we partnered DW Academy because we were working already with them on the physical trainings. So we partnered with them to see if we can begin to hold online training sessions. But as you already know, these are different. So teaching or training students, journalists physically is not the same. So we needed a different skill altogether. We knew, yes, there was Teams, we could use all these other platforms, but actually getting to engage because ours, as I already also indicated earlier on, ours are training sessions that are practical in nature. So we need students, we need the trainees to actually be practicing as we go along. But we didn't know how we could transfer that physical to the online side. So DW Academy partnered us to be able to not have this conversation, to be able to get the webinar style into the engagement into a practical session. So we collaborated with international trainers. We were trained in how we can hold these type of trainings online, not just online, even WhatsApp based. But we collaborated with international trainers to be able to do these kinds of trainings. Our local trainers, as I indicated, were part of the DW Academy training on how to prepare practical-based trainings for journalists. We collaborate with collaborative tools that we could use alongside the webinars. And in Malawi, there is no formal journalism training school that was able to offer such kind of training. So at the time that the pandemic struck, it was difficult for the available training institutions to be able to continue to train students online, let alone to be able to train them practically. So it was already difficult just to continue to have a class, a webinar of 100 something or maybe 30 or so students. But to even get them to practice was even more difficult. But for us, we were lucky that our trainers, there's a pool of trainers that we have, were trained on how to deliver such trainings, and we began to deliver those trainings immediately. So during the pandemic, we didn't take long. Once we mastered this art, we began to organize the trainings with online participants. Now, looking at what we have been able to notice as an advantage on our part as a training center, the first thing is that there is a bit of flexibility. So as I indicated again, we are mainly targeting journalists who are practicing. So you will agree with me that there are demands that the media house expects the journalists to be delivering on. At the same time, we want them to focus on the training. So during the physical training, sometimes you will notice that someone's attention is divided. They are, they have a deadline to meet. At the same time, they have to attend this training. But with these particular online trainings, we noticed that where you put a session of like 2 hours, you have the participant for that entire 2 hours. They have the other time to be able to do work as it demands. So there's that flexibility, and we noted that, where you compare these two, a five-day training session physically throughout